Dear Black people, it's time that we talk about retirement. I know. You're not that old yet. You don't have the money to do it. You're living your best life. YOLO. I get it. But there's a lot of important information that I think you need to know about retirement. I'll see you guys in a couple minutes. Though retirement is far away from most of us, it is something that we see people struggle with every day. Whether it be parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, neighbors, etc. Going into retirement with no security blanket can cause a large amount of stress for everyone. In fact, most people are not prepared for retirement. Northwestern Mutual did a survey and determined that 22% of people have less than $5,000 saved for retirement. 5% have between $5,000 and $25,000. 16% have over $200,000. And that 46% of those surveys don't even know how much they have. Personal finance expert and best-selling author Chris Hogan also knows some surprising statistics as it pertains to retirement. Only 58% of Americans are actively saving for retirement, and 48% of Americans have less than $10,000 saved. In addition, 64% of Americans have no idea how much they need for retirement, while close to 60% of Americans report losing sleep thinking about retirement. Ladies, you should be concerned about this next stat. Almost 35% of women have no retirement savings compared to 15% of men. To put in simpler terms, women are 2 times more likely to have nothing saved for retirement. If you aren't shocked yet, keep listening. When you break down retirement by race, you start to see some drastic and somewhat depressing results. In 2016, the average white family had $130,000 in liquid retirement savings. For African Americans and Latinos, the average balances were $19,000 and roughly $17,000 respectively. The average white family had more than 6 times more saved for retirement than African Americans and Latinos. Among other races, the average balance is $100,000. For minorities, we must do better with saving for retirement if we're ever to close this gap. And for the record, an average balance of $130,000 at retirement is not sufficient for retirement at all. If you look on the chart here, you will see that in 2016, 68% of white non-Hispanic families had a retirement account, while only 40% of Blacks and Hispanic families had a retirement account. Let me put this another way for you. In 2016, 60% of African American and Latinos had no retirement savings. Okay, enough with the bad news. So what types of retirement accounts are there? Most known is the 401k, but you also have 403bs for teachers and nurses, 457s for state and local government employees, and IRAs for folks who don't have a retirement plan through an employer. For most employer-sponsored plans, you can make a max contribution of $19,500 for 2020, while for IRAs, the max contribution is $6,000 per year. A quick note on the Roth option for retirement. A Roth 401k is a post-tax retirement savings account. That means your contributions have already been taxed before they enter your Roth 401k. On the other hand, a traditional 401k is a pre-tax savings account. When you invest in a traditional 401k, your contributions go in before they're taxed, which makes your taxable income lower. Either option is fine, and the biggest item to consider is whether you think taxes will be higher now versus later. The point here is, though, start contributing to your retirement and start doing so now. For some lucky folks, your job may offer a pension. A pension plan is a retirement plan that requires the employer to make contributions to a pool of funds set aside for you for retirement. There are 2 types of pension plans, defined benefit and defined contribution. For a defined benefit, the employer guarantees that the employee receives a defined amount upon retirement, regardless of the performance of the underlying investment pool. This means that the employer bears the burden of the investment risk. For defined contribution plans, the employer makes specific plan contributions for the worker, but that's it. The employee bears the burden of the investment performance because the employer does not guarantee a specific amount per month. See, most companies have moved towards using a defined contribution plan because it's much easier to maintain and much less liability. Now, here's the fun stuff. For those of you who still don't think retirement's actually that important, let me do the math for you real quick. Let's say that you're 35 years old with zero in retirement. And for the next 30 years, you wanted to start saving for retirement. Let's suppose that you put away $800 a month, okay? And let's also suppose that the stock market or your retirement account averaged about a 7% return, which is what it's averaged over the last 100 years, okay? So $800 a month for the next 30 years at a 7% interest rate. What do you think your account's gonna look like after 30 years? Let me help you. You'll almost have $1 million in your 401k. Yeah. In fact, Chris Hogan did a study back in 2018 where he surveyed over 10,000 millionaires in America. And what he found was close to 80% of them became millionaires specifically because of their 401k. Not from some stock tip, not from trading every day, not from flipping houses, which is still good. What I'm saying is you're more likely to become a millionaire through your 401k because you're not allowed to touch it. If you ever have the chance to get Chris Hogan's book, it's called Everyday Millionaires. It's somewhere up here. Get the book if you're interested. Let's end the presentation. So I'll leave you with a quote on retirement. Growing old is not an option. We don't have a choice, but we do have choices that greatly affect our quality of life for the rest of our life, because a part of all that you earn is yours to keep.